This story is very meaningful. Everyone should hear it. Listen to Brian tell the story. My name is Lila, a 28-year-old woman who thought she had life pretty figured out. Married to Ben, my steady orthodontist husband, living a quiet suburban existence with double dates and weekend trips filling our social calendar. I'm the kind of person who trusts too easily, laughs too loud, and assumes the best in people until they prove me wrong. Ben's the opposite. 32, reserved, with a dry wit and a face that's gotten us more than a few free drinks over the years. We don't do social media, except for my occasional Reddit scrolls, and we like it that way. Keeps things simple. Or so I thought. That all shattered the night I found the USB drive on our doorstep. A scratched-up little thing with a note taped to it. Watch me. My hands shook as I plugged it into my laptop, Ben hovering over my shoulder, his breath uneven. The screen flickered, and there he was, Ben, adjusting his glasses at work, then me, asleep in our bed, my mouth half open, drooling on the pillow. The footage was grainy, recent, and unmistakably taken by someone who'd been too close for too long. My stomach dropped, a cold sweat prickling my skin. "She's still filming us," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the thudding of my heart. Ben's face went pale, his fists clenching until his knuckles turned white. We'd thought June, my so-called friend, was out of our lives. We were wrong. It started innocently enough, 2 years back. June was 28 like me, a small-time influencer with a knack for turning every outing into a photo op. She'd film everything, her coffee, her shoes, her boyfriend Mark's goofy grins, always chasing that next viral hit. Her half-sister Rhea, a shy 12-year-old with braces, was one of Ben's patients, and June often tagged along to appointments, phone in hand. Ben and I had laid down the law early, no posting us online. We didn't want our faces splashed across her vlogs, and she'd nodded, all wide-eyed sincerity. Of course I'd never do that, she'd said, and I believed her. Mark, 30 and perpetually chill, backed her up, saying she was just building her brand. I liked them both, June's bubbly energy, Mark's easygoing charm. We became a tight foursome, hitting rooftop bars, renting cabins upstate, even planning a group trip to Nashville. Then Tara came along, a 26-year-old mutual friend with a sharp tongue and a gossip's nose. She'd smirk at June's constant filming, tossing out comments like, "You're gonna make Ben a TikTok star one day," while I laughed it off. Looking back, I should have seen the cracks forming. The first real warning came last weekend at a rooftop bar. The air was warm, fairy lights twinkling overhead, the hum of chatter blending with clinking glasses. June had her phone out as usual, panning it around our table. Ben shifted in his seat, his jaw tightening. "I'd rather not be your aesthetic, thanks," he said, his tone clipped but polite. June giggled, brushing it off. "It's just for fun, Benny boy." Tara raised an eyebrow, sipping her martini. "Girl, you're zooming in on him like he's Brad Pitt. Chill." I squeezed Ben's hand under the table, feeling a flicker of unease but shoving it down. "She knows our rules," I told him later, as we drove home under a star-streaked sky. He didn't look convinced, his hazel eyes clouded with something I couldn't place. "I don't like how she watches me," he muttered. I chalked it up to him being paranoid. Ben's always been the cautious one. I wish I'd listened. The bomb dropped a few days later. My brother Jake, a 30-year-old tech nerd with a protective streak a mile wide, barged into our living room, his sneakers squeaking on the hardwood. "Lila, you need to see this," he said, shoving his phone at me. His voice was tight, his usual smirk gone. I took it, Ben leaning in, and hit play. June's TikTok filled the screen, a montage of Ben set to some sultry pop song, him eating pizza on a double date, laughing at a campfire, adjusting his scrubs while working on Rhea. The title, "God, I See What You've Done for Others," 750,000 views. My mouth went dry, a sick heat crawling up my neck. "She's been recording him secretly," I said, my voice trembling. "That's Rhea in the chair. Her face isn't even blurred." Ben's hand gripped the couch arm, his breathing shallow. "She filmed me at work? With a minor? This could ruin me. HIPAA, my license." Jake snorted, but his eyes were hard. "500,000 people are drooling over you, man. You're TikTok's hot dentist now." I grabbed my phone, texting June. "Take it down, now." Her reply pinged back fast. "It's just for fun, chill." I wanted to scream. We confronted her the next day at her apartment, a cluttered mess of ring lights and half-empty coffee cups. Mark lounged on the couch, scrolling X, oblivious as ever. June was mid-TikTok, fake tears glistening as she rambled about mental health struggles. I didn't knock, just stormed in, Ben behind me, his face a mask of fury. "Delete everything," I snapped. "Every clip, every photo." June's eyes narrowed, but she kept that syrupy smile. "It's not about you, it's engagement. Hot guys go viral. I gained 5K followers." Ben stepped forward, his voice low and dangerous. "You filmed my patient. That's illegal. Ria's face is out there." Ria peeked out from the kitchen, her braces glinting as she clutched a soda. "You said it was just for me to see, June." Her small voice cut through the tension, and June flinched. Mark sat up, frowning. "Wait, what's going on?" June whirled on him. "Oh, shut up, Mark." "Lila's just jealous. I'm blowing up." I lost it. "You're delusional," I spat. "Stay away from us, you creepy weirdo." Her smirk as we left sent a chill down my spine. "You'll regret that," she said softly. Things spiraled from there. Ben texted her again, demanding she delete the videos, his fingers trembling as he typed out each word. I stood beside him in our kitchen, the dim light casting shadows on his furrowed brow. "She's got to stop," he muttered, hitting send. June's reply came quick, dripping with fake innocence. "What videos?" I could almost hear her smug little laugh through the screen. Ben's jaw tightened, and he fired back. "Don't play dumb. Take them down or we're reporting you." She dropped the act then, texting, "It's just for clout, Benny. TikTok loves hot guys. Chill out." My stomach churned with a mix of rage and disbelief. "Chill out?" I snapped, grabbing my own phone. We rallied everyone, my parents, Ben's sister, even Jake, who grumbled but got his gamer buddies to spam the report button. The TikTok finally came down after a tense 48 hours, and I let out a shaky breath, thinking we'd won. But June wasn't done. My phone buzzed with a novel-length rant. "You're jealous, Lila. You can't handle my success. I'm going places, and you're trying to drag me down." I stared at it, my pulse pounding in my ears, then typed back, my fingers flying, "You're unhinged. You'll never be successful. Stay away." I hit send, my chest heaving, and blocked her number. She went weepy online, posting sob stories about toxic friends and mental health, but I didn't care. We cut her off. Mark II, collateral damage. I felt a pang for him, but I couldn't risk her slithering back through him. Ben called Ria's parents, his voice steady but strained, explaining the video. "We had no idea," her mom said, her voice cracking over the line. "June told us she just wanted to bond with Ria." They agreed to chaperone Ria's appointments, and Ben's practice enforced a strict no-June policy. Dr. Patel, his colleague, insisted on a female assistant present at all times. "We're covered," she said firmly, her dark eyes scanning the office like a hawk. I thought we were safe. I was wrong. The unease lingered like a bad smell. Ben started double-checking the locks every night, his movements jerky, his usual calm replaced by a quiet tension that made my heart ache. I tried to keep things light, cracking jokes about TikTok's hottest dentist, but his smiles were thin, fleeting. Then Mark called, his voice low and urgent, asking to meet at a coffee shop down the street. We pulled up in Ben's Jeep, the engine still ticking as we spotted Mark in his beat-up sedan, his face drawn. "I confronted her," he said, running a hand through his messy hair, his eyes darting to the rearview mirror like he expected her to pop up. "She's obsessed with Ben, called him her content goldmine. She had hundreds of pics and videos on her laptop, Lila. And you—" He hesitated, then slid his phone across the dashboard. I took it, my throat tightening as I scrolled through blurry shots of me, mid-bite at a diner, drooling in my sleep, making dumb faces at a picnic. Captions sneered, "Hot guy, ugly wife." Humiliation burned my cheeks, hot and sharp, and I shoved the phone back at him. "She wanted to tear me down," I whispered, my voice breaking. Ben's hand found mine, squeezing hard, but his face was stone, his eyes blazing. "This isn't about clout," he said. "It's personal." Mark nodded, swallowing hard. "She wouldn't let me see her phone. I dumped her, but she's unhinged. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." I hugged him, my arms trembling. "Thanks for telling us," I said, but as he drove off, a cold dread settled in my gut. That's when Tara showed up, uninvited, banging on our door 2 nights later. Her blonde hair was a mess, her eyes wild with that gossipy gleam I'd once found funny. "You guys okay?" she asked, barging in without waiting for an answer. "June's been texting me non-stop, saying you're out to ruin her." I groaned, rubbing my temples. "She's delusional, Tara. She filmed Ben secretly. Posted it online. We're done with her. Tara's mouth dropped open, but then she smirked, flopping onto our couch. Damn, that's some stalker level shit. But you know she's telling people you're the bad guy, right? Mutual friends are eating it up. Ben paced behind me, his shoes scuffing the floor. Let them, he snapped. She's the one breaking laws. Tara raised an eyebrow, pulling out her phone. She sent me this today. Look. It was a screenshot of June's latest sob story on X. Some people can't handle my glow-up. # mental health matters. I snorted, but my laugh was bitter. She's a creep. Tell her that next time she whines to you. Tara shrugged, typing something. I'll stir the pot, see what she says. I didn't like it, but I let her. Maybe she'd dig up something useful. Then came the new player, Chris, a 35-year-old private investigator Jake knew from his tech circles. Jake dragged him over one evening, his lanky frame filling our doorway. You need help, Jake said, shoving a beer into Chris's hand. This guy's good at finding dirt. Chris was all business, his shaved head gleaming under our lights, his voice gravelly. Heard about your TikTok stalker. Give me her info. I'll tail her, see what she's up to. Ben hesitated, glancing at me, but I nodded. Do it, I said. She's not stopping. Chris took her name, her address, her socials, and left with a grunt. 2 days, he said. I'll call. I felt a flicker of hope, but it was fragile, easily crushed. 2 days later, Chris called while Ben and I were eating takeout, chopsticks frozen midair. She's erratic, he said, his tone clipped. Caught her outside your house last night, snapped pics through your window. She's got a burner phone too, no videos posted yet, but she's building something. My heart stopped, the noodles slipping from my grip. She was here? I croaked. Ben's face went white, his chopsticks clattering to the table. What the hell does she want? Chris paused. You, Ben. She's fixated. I'd get cameras. Now. We did that night. Security cams, a dash cam for the Jeep, even a cheap nanny cam in the living room. Ben barely slept, his eyes bloodshot as he stared at the feeds on his laptop. I feel her, he whispered once, his voice raw. Everywhere. I held him, my own fear bubbling up, but I swallowed it down. We'll stop her, I promised, though I wasn't sure how. Tara texted me the next morning, her message frantic. June's losing it. She sent me a voice memo. Listen. I played it, Ben leaning close, and June's voice spilled out, shrill and unhinged. They think they can shut me down, Tara, but I've got more. Ben's mine, my ticket. They'll see. My skin crawled, a shiver racing down my spine. She's insane, Ben said, his voice trembling. I forwarded it to Chris, who called back fast. She's at a motel now, cheap place off Route 17. I saw her with a tripod filming something. No sign of the burner, but she's jumpy, keeps looking over her shoulder. I gripped the phone, my knuckles white. Keep watching her, I said. We're talking to a lawyer tomorrow. Ben nodded, but his hands shook as he poured coffee, spilling half on the counter. The lawyer, Ms. Garcia, was a 40-year-old fireball with a no-nonsense stare. We met her in a sleek office downtown, the city buzzing outside her window. You've got a case, she said, flipping through Chris's photos and Tara's memo. Invasion of privacy, potential stalking charges, the patient footage, HIPAA violation. We can push for a restraining order, maybe more. Ben exhaled, a shaky sound, but I felt a spark of relief. How fast? I asked. Days, she said. Get me everything, texts, videos, that memo. I'll bury her in paperwork. We left lighter, but not free. That night, the USB drive showed up. I found it on our doorstep after dinner, a scratched-up little thing with a note taped on, Watch me. My hands shook as I picked it up, the paper crinkling under my fingers. Ben froze in the doorway, his eyes wide. Don't, he said, but I was already inside, plugging it into my laptop. The screen flickered, and there he was, Ben at work, adjusting his glasses, then me, asleep in our bed, my mouth half open, drooling. Recent. Too recent. She's still filming us, I whispered, my voice barely audible over my pounding heart. Ben's fists clenched, his breathing ragged. How? We've got cameras. I checked the feeds. Nothing. She'd dodged them somehow. Jake stormed over an hour later, his face thunderous. Burner phone, he said, slamming his laptop down. I traced the text she sent Ben, meet me, to a prepaid number. She's smart. Chris called then, his voice grim. She's gone from the motel. Left a note on her door. Back soon. I'm checking her haunts. I sank onto the couch, my head spinning. She's not stopping, I said. Ben sat beside me, his arm around my shoulders, but he was trembling. We need to end this, he said, his voice breaking. Ms. Garcia called that evening, her voice triumphant, cutting through the haze of exhaustion that had settled over me like a fog. Restraining orders through, she said, her words crisp and confident. Served her this afternoon. She's barred from contacting you, coming near you, posting about you. Violation means jail. I exhaled, a shaky laugh escaping me, raw and unsteady, as I leaned against the kitchen counter, the cold edge biting into my palms. Thank God, I said, my voice cracking. But the relief was tinged with doubt, a gnawing little worm that wriggled in my gut. Would it stop her? Really? Ben sat at the table, his shoulders hunched, and forced a smile when I looked at him, his hand reaching for mine. His grip was firm, almost desperate, but his hazel eyes stayed dark, shadowed with a fear he couldn't shake. It's something, he murmured, his voice thin, like he was trying to convince himself more than me. I nodded, squeezing back, but my chest felt tight, the air thick with unspoken what-ifs. Chris checked in an hour later, his gruff voice crackling through the phone as I stood by the window, staring at the dark street beyond our curtains. She's back at the motel, he said, matter-of-fact but edged with tension. Pissed about the order, trashed her room according to the clerk. Derek's with her. I'm watching. I pictured June, her manic energy unleashed on that dingy motel room, shattered lamps, torn curtains, Derek lurking in the corner with his twitchy hands and tattooed arms. Thanks, Chris, I said, my voice hollow, echoing in my own ears as I hung up. I turned to Ben, relaying the update, and he just nodded, his jaw tight, his fingers drumming a restless beat on the table. That night, we slept with the lights on, the harsh glow casting long shadows across our bedroom. The cameras hummed in the background, their feeds flickering on Ben's laptop, but every creak of the house, every gust of wind rattling the windows jolted me awake, my heart racing. June was silent, for now, but I knew it wasn't over. She'd lost the battle, but her war was far from done, and the quiet felt like the calm before a storm I couldn't predict. Morning came, gray and heavy, the sky outside our window smeared with clouds that mirrored the weight in my chest. Ben shuffled into the kitchen, his hair a mess, his eyes bloodshot from another night of broken sleep. Coffee? He asked, his voice rough, and I nodded, watching him fumble with the pot, his hands unsteady. We sat in silence, the steam curling between us, when my phone buzzed on the counter. It was Jake, his text short and sharp. Check X now. My stomach dropped, a cold sweat prickling my skin as I opened the app. There it was, June's latest post, time-stamped an hour ago. They think they can silence me. Watch this space. #Dardreamy. Justice. My breath hitched, my fingers trembling as I showed Ben. She's violating the order already, he said, his voice rising, a mix of anger and panic. I called Ms. Garcia, my words tumbling out in a rush. She posted, she's taunting us. Garcia's tone hardened, all traces of triumph gone. Screen grab it. I'll call the cops. Get her picked up. She's digging her own grave. I did, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone, and sent it to her. But the post was gone 10 minutes later, deleted, or maybe hidden. She's playing games, I muttered, my voice bitter, and Ben's fist slammed the table, the mugs rattling. I'm so sick of this, he snapped, his eyes blazing. I reached for him, my own frustration boiling over, but before I could speak, the doorbell rang. We froze, our eyes locking, the sound piercing the tense air like a gunshot. Ben stood, his movements stiff, and I followed, my heart pounding as I peered through the peephole. It was Rhea, her small frame dwarfed by a too-big hoodie, her braces glinting as she shifted nervously. I opened the door, confusion warring with relief. Rhea? What are you doing here? I asked, my voice softer than I felt. She hugged herself, her dark eyes darting around. I ran away, she said, her voice trembling. June's freaking out. She's got this guy at the house, Derek, and they're talking about you. I heard them say they're gonna make you pay. I didn't know where else to go. My blood ran cold, my knees weakening as I pulled her inside, locking the door behind her. Ben crouched beside her, his face pale but gentle. You're safe here, he said, though his voice shook. What did they say? Rhea swallowed hard, her hands twisting the hem of her sleeve. June said she's got proof, videos or something. Derek laughed, said he'd deliver it. I got scared and snuck out. I hugged her, my arms tight, but my mind raced, a dozen awful images flashing through it, June and Derek plotting, closing in. I called Chris, my voice urgent as I put him on speaker. Ria's here. She ran from June's place. They're planning something with proof. Derek's involved. Chris swore under his breath, the sound sharp and jagged. I'm at the motel. She's not here. Clerk says she left with the tattoo guy an hour ago. I'll check her house. Keep the kids safe. I thanked him, my throat dry, and turned to Ria. You're staying with us, I said, firm despite the fear clawing at me. She nodded, her eyes wide, and Ben guided her to the couch, grabbing a blanket from the closet. I'll call her parents, he said, his voice steadying as he dialed. I watched him, my chest aching with a mix of pride and terror. He was holding it together for her, even as he fell apart inside. Ria's mom picked up fast, her voice frantic when Ben explained. We've been looking for her. She didn't come home from school. Is she okay? Ben reassured her, calm and measured, and she promised to come get her husband already in the car. We're so sorry, she said near tears. June's out of control. We're cutting her off too. I exhaled, a small weight lifting, but it wasn't enough. Not with June and Derek out there, scheming. Chris called back as Ria's parents pulled into our driveway, his tone grim. Her house is empty, signs of a rush job, laptops gone, clothes scattered. They've bolted. My heart sank, a sick dread pooling in my gut. Where? I asked, my voice small. Dunno, he said. Vince is checking the bar. I'm hitting her known spots. Stay locked down. I hung up, my hands shaking, and hugged Ria tight as her parents rushed in, their faces etched with worry and gratitude. Thank you, her dad said, his voice rough, and I nodded, forcing a smile as they left, Ria safe but the threat still looming. That night the house felt like a fortress under siege. Ben and I sat on the couch, the cameras rolling, the lights on, every shadow a potential enemy. My phone buzzed. Tara, her text frantic. June called me, freaking out about Ria. She knows she's with you, said they'll regret hiding her. My stomach twisted, a cold sweat breaking out on my skin. She's unhinged, I whispered, showing Ben. He grabbed his laptop, checking the feeds, his movements jerky. Nothing yet, he said, but his voice was tight, his eyes darting to the windows. I texted Tara back. Stay out of it. She's dangerous. Her reply was instant. Too late. She's pissed at me now too. I groaned, my head throbbing. Great, another loose cannon. Then the power cut out, plunging us into darkness, the camera's red lights blinking off one by one. My breath caught, my heart slamming against my ribs as I grabbed Ben's arm. What the hell? He whispered, his voice shaking. We fumbled for our phones, the flashlight beam slicing through the black, when a loud thud echoed from the back door. I yelped, my grip tightening on Ben, and he stood, pulling me behind him. Stay here, he said, his voice low, but I shook my head, my fear morphing into a fierce resolve. No way, I said, grabbing a kitchen knife from the counter. We crept toward the sound, my pulse roaring in my ears, the beam trembling in my hand. Another thud, louder, deliberate. Lila? Ben's voice was a hiss, his hand on the doorknob. Before I could answer, the lights flickered back on, blinding us, and the cameras rebooted with a soft hum. We froze, staring at the door, but it was still locked, the yard beyond it empty, at least to the naked eye. My phone buzzed again. Chris. Power surge in your area. False alarm, but stay sharp, she's close. Vince saw her car near the bar. I exhaled, my knees weak, but the relief was fleeting. She's circling us, I said, my voice trembling as I set the knife down, my hands still shaking. Ben pulled me into his arms, his breath ragged against my hair. We can't keep doing this, he said, his voice breaking. We need to go. New state, new life. I nodded against him, my resolve crumbling under the weight of it all. Okay, I whispered. But not yet. We end this first. He pulled back, his eyes searching mine, and nodded, a flicker of steel in his gaze. We end it, he agreed. The next morning, Vince called, his voice rough with exhaustion. Got her. Bar parking lot, arguing with Derek. She's unraveling, screaming about losing everything. I tailed them to a gas station. They're sloppy now. My heart leapt, a wild hope flaring in my chest. Cops? I asked. Called 'em, he said. They're moving in. She's got no idea. I thanked him, my voice thick, and hung up, turning to Ben. "They've got her," I said, tears prickling my eyes. He exhaled, a shaky laugh escaping him, and pulled me close, his arms trembling. "It's over?" he asked, almost afraid to believe it. "Almost," I said, clinging to him, the tension draining from my body like water from a cracked dam. Hours later, Chris confirmed it. June and Derek arrested, her for violating the order, him for outstanding warrants. Her car was a mess of laptops, burners, and scribbled notes about Ben, about me, about winning. The cops took it all, and Ms. Garcia promised charges that'd stick. "She's done," she said, her voice smug, and I believed her this time. Ben and I sat on the couch that night, the lights off for the first time in weeks, the silence a fragile gift. "We're free," I whispered, my head on his shoulder. He kissed my hair, his breath warm against my skin. "Yeah," he said, his voice soft but sure. "We are." June was gone, locked up, her schemes unraveling in a jail cell somewhere. Derek hauled off with her, their messy little empire of obsession and petty crime crumbling under the weight of the law. Chris's last update had been a gruff, "They're not getting out anytime soon," and Ms. Garcia had followed with a crisp, "We've got enough to bury her, stalking, harassment, the works." Relief washed over me that night, a tidal wave that left me dizzy as I sat on the couch with Ben, the lights off for the first time in weeks, the darkness no longer a threat but a comfort. I leaned against him, my head on his shoulder, feeling the steady rise and fall of his chest, his warmth seeping into me. "We're free," I whispered, my voice soft, almost afraid to test the words aloud. He kissed my hair, his lips lingering, his breath warm against my scalp. "Yeah," he said, his voice low but certain, a quiet strength returning to it. "We are." I closed my eyes, letting the silence wrap around us, a fragile gift after months of chaos. But even as I exhaled, a small, nagging thread of unease tugged at me. June was gone, but the world she'd stirred up wasn't. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through the curtains, a rare brightness that felt almost foreign after so many gray days. Ben was already up, brewing coffee, his movements slow but deliberate, a shadow of his old self flickering back to life. "Sleep okay?" he asked, glancing over his shoulder, a faint smile tugging at his lips. I nodded, stretching, my muscles aching from tension I hadn't fully shaken. "Better than I have in weeks," I said, sliding onto a stool at the counter. He handed me a mug, the steam curling up between us, and for a moment, it was just us. No cameras, no threats, no June. But my phone buzzed on the counter, shattering the peace, and I flinched, a reflex I couldn't unlearn. It was Tara, her text short. "Check TikTok, now." My stomach twisted, that familiar dread creeping back as I opened the app with shaky fingers. It wasn't June, her account was still down, but a new video was trending under #DarDreamy, a grainy clip of Ben leaving his office, the same one from the photo that kid had delivered, set to a cheesy love song. "June's legacy lives on," the caption read, posted by some random account with a few thousand followers. My heart sank, the mug trembling in my hands as I showed Ben. "Her fans," I said, my voice bitter. "They're not letting it go." Ben's face darkened, his jaw tightening as he watched the clip loop, him adjusting his glasses, oblivious, a target all over again. "How do they even have this?" he asked, his voice sharp, frustration bubbling up. I shook my head, my mind racing. June must have shared it before she got caught. Her group chat, maybe Derek. I called Chris, my pulse pounding as I put him on speaker. "There's a new video," I said, skipping pleasantries. "Same footage from that photo. Her followers are picking up where she left off." Chris swore, his voice gravelly with exhaustion. "Thought we'd nip this. I'll dig into it, track the account, see if it's linked to her crew. Garcia can slap him with a cease and desist." I thanked him, my throat tight, and hung up, turning to Ben. "We can't catch a break," I said, my voice cracking. He pulled me into his arms, his grip fierce, his breath ragged. "We'll stop it," he said, but the weariness in his tone mirrored my own. I nodded against him, clinging to the hope that this was just an echo, not a new storm. Jake showed up an hour later, his lanky frame slouched in the doorway, a laptop bag slung over his shoulder. "Saw the TikTok," he said, kicking off his sneakers. "Freaking vultures." He flopped onto the couch, cracking open his laptop as Ben and I hovered behind him. "I've been poking around," he said, his fingers flying across the keys. "That account, DreamyFan69. It's new, but the IP traces to a coffee shop downtown. Public Wi-Fi, no real lead, but the group chat's still active. Bunch of weirdos swapping pics, hyping each other up. My stomach churned, a sick heat crawling up my neck. Pics of Ben? I asked, dreading the answer. Jake nodded, his jaw tight. Some old stuff, June's stash probably, but nothing recent, yet. Ben paced behind me, his shoes scuffing the floor. This is insane, he muttered. I'm not a damn celebrity. I squeezed his hand, my own anger simmering. We'll shut it down, I said, though I wasn't sure how. Jake smirked, a glint in his eye. I could hack 'em, flood their chat with spam, crash their vibe. I raised an eyebrow, tempted, but shook my head. No, legal only. Garcia's on it. Tara texted again that afternoon, her message frantic. Met one of the fans at the gym. Creepy dude, kept asking about you guys, said he's keeping the dream alive. I told him to piss off, but heads up. My heart skipped, a cold sweat prickling my skin as I read it aloud. Ben's face paled, his hands clenching into fists. They're stalking us now? He asked, his voice rising, a mix of fear and fury. I called Chris again, my hands trembling. One of her fans approached Tara, asking about us, I said, my voice urgent. Chris grunted, his tone hard. June's poison's spreading. I'll check the gym, get a description. Might be our coffee shop poster. I thanked him, my chest tight, and turned to Ben. We need to lay low, I said, my voice firm despite the panic clawing at me. He nodded, his eyes dark, and we spent the day inside, curtains drawn, the house a bunker once more. That night, I couldn't sleep, my mind buzzing with every new threat, every loose end June had left behind. Ben tossed beside me, his breathing uneven, and I stared at the ceiling, the shadows dancing in the faint glow of the streetlights. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Naya, her name a surprise on the screen. I'd almost forgotten her, caught up in our own mess, but her text was a lifeline. Heard about your stalker chick. You okay? My landlord's still a creep, but I've got tricks. Call me. I smiled, a small tired thing, and texted back. Not okay, but alive. Need your advice? Tomorrow? Her reply was instant. Damn right. 10 a.m. We'll strategize. I set the phone down, a flicker of hope warming me. Nia was a fighter. She'd face down her own nightmare and come out swinging. Maybe she could help us do the same. The call with Nia the next morning was a breath of fresh air, her sharp voice cutting through my fog of worry. So, June's locked up, but her minions are still at it? She asked, her tone dry, the clatter of dishes in the background telling me she was multitasking. Yeah, I said, sipping coffee, Ben listening beside me. Videos, fans, some creep at Tara's gym. It's like she's haunting us from jail. Nia snorted, a sound both amused and fierce. Sounds like my landlord, Hargrove and his sleazy son Tommy. They're quiet now, but I've got cams, a lawyer, the works. You need to go hard. Public shame, legal hammer, whatever it takes. Those TikTok freaks want attention? Choke 'em with it. I grinned, her fire contagious. Public shame? I asked, intrigued. Call 'em out, she said. Post their crap, tag the cops, make it a circus. They'll scatter. Worked on Hargrove, he hates the spotlight. Ben raised an eyebrow, a spark of interest in his tired eyes. Could work, he said, his voice cautious but warming to it. Thanks, Nia, I said, my resolve hardening. I owe you, she laughed. Pay me in coffee when this is over. Stay safe. Inspired, I grabbed my laptop, Ben leaning over my shoulder as I drafted a post for X. Not our usual style, but desperate times called for it. June's in jail, but her fans won't quit, I typed, my fingers flying. Here's their latest, harassing us, stalking us. Cops are watching. Back off. I attached the TikTok screenshot, tagged the local PD, and hit send, my heart pounding. Ben exhaled, a shaky sound. You sure? He asked, his hand on my arm. No, I admitted, but I'm done hiding. The post spread fast. Jake retweeted it, Tara too, and soon strangers were piling on, some outraged, some trolling, but the noise grew. Chris called an hour later, his voice gruff but approving. Smart move. That gym creep's been ID'd, lowlife named Kevin, priors for loitering. Cops spooked him, he's backing off. The TikTok account's dark now too. I exhaled, a laugh bubbling up, relief and disbelief mixing together. It's working? I asked. For now, he said. Keep the pressure on. But June wasn't done with us. Not entirely. A week later, as the online storm settled and Ben started sleeping through the night again, a letter arrived. No return address, just our names in jagged handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it, Ben hovering close, his breath uneven. Inside was a single sheet, typed, unsigned. You won this round, but I've got friends. Enjoy your peace. It won't last. My stomach dropped, the words searing into me like a brand. Her? Ben asked, his voice trembling. I nodded, my throat tight. Or one of her minions. I called Chris, my voice steady despite the fear clawing back. Another threat, I said, reading it aloud. He grunted, unperturbed. Jail mail. Smuggled out, probably. I'll trace it. She's got no power left. Don't let it shake you. I thanked him, setting the letter down, my hands still trembling. Ben pulled me close, his arms a shield, his voice soft but firm. We're stronger than her, he said. I nodded, clinging to him, the letter a shadow but not a chain. Nia's advice echoed in my mind as we sat there, the house quiet again. Fight back, make noise, don't break. We'd won, for now, but I knew we'd never fully trust the silence. We should still move, I said, my voice low, the idea solidifying. Ben nodded, his eyes meeting mine, a shared resolve settling between us. New state, new start, he agreed, after we're sure she's done. I smiled, faint but real, and kissed him, the taste of coffee lingering between us. The war was ours and we'd keep fighting for peace, for us. The letter sat on the coffee table like a live grenade, its typed words, You won this round, but I've got friends. Enjoy your peace. It won't last. Burning into my mind every time I glanced at it. I tried to shove it aside, to focus on Ben as he flipped through a stack of takeout menus, his brow furrowed in a way that was almost normal again, but my hands wouldn't stop trembling. Chris had brushed it off as jail mail, a last gasp from June smuggled out through some desperate connection, but the doubt lingered, a cold splinter lodged in my chest. Ben caught my eye, setting the menus down, and reached for my hand, his grip warm and steady. We're okay, he said, his voice soft but firm, like he was willing it to be true. I nodded, forcing a smile, but my stomach churned, the quiet of our house feeling too fragile, too thin to trust. Yeah, I said, my voice hollow. We're okay. But I wasn't sure I believed it, and the way his hazel eyes searched mine told me he wasn't either. Morning brought a drizzle, the kind that smeared the windows and made the world outside look blurry, uncertain. I sipped coffee at the kitchen counter, the mug warm against my palms, while Ben showered, the faint hum of water a small comfort. My phone buzzed. Nia again, her text a jolt of energy. You get my last MSG? Coffee soon. I've got landlord drama to spill. I smiled, a real one this time, and texted back. Hell yes. Tomorrow? I've got a creepy letter to top your story. Her reply was instant. Deal. 10 a.m. Bring Ben. He owes me a grin. I chuckled, the knot in my chest loosening just a fraction. Nia had a way of pulling me out of the dark, her no-nonsense grit a lifeline I hadn't known I needed until June turned our lives upside down. I was about to call out to Ben when the doorbell rang, sharp and sudden, making me jump so hard coffee sloshed onto the counter. My heart thudded, the memory of Ria's unexpected arrival flashing through me. But this time it was Jake, soaked from the rain, his hoodie dripping as he barged in. You see this? He asked, shoving his phone at me, his voice tight with irritation. I took it, wiping my wet hands on my jeans, and stared at the screen. An X-post from an account I didn't recognize. June's a martyr. #Dardreamy deserves better than his jealous wife. Free her. My breath caught, a sick heat crawling up my neck as I scrolled the replies. Dozens of them, some defending June, others trashing me, a few tagging Ben's office with creepy heart emojis. What the hell? I whispered, my voice shaking. Jake snatched the phone back, his jaw clenched. It's her damn fan club, still at it. Chris's cease and desist spooked the TikTok guy, but these creeps are popping up on X now. Ben emerged from the bathroom, towel around his neck, his hair damp and tousled. What's going on? He asked, his voice wary as he caught the tension in the room. I handed him Jake's phone, my hands trembling again, and watched his face harden as he read. They're calling me jealous? I said, my voice rising, anger edging out the fear. After everything she did? Ben's fist clenched around the towel, his knuckles white. This ends now, he said, his tone low and dangerous, a fire I hadn't seen in weeks flickering back to life. We called Chris, putting him on speaker as Jake paced behind us, muttering about trolling the trolls. "New post on X," I said, my voice sharp. "June's martyrs are targeting us again." Chris grunted, the sound rough with frustration. "Thought we'd squash this. I'll track the account, probably another burner. Garcia can hit him with a defamation suit if it's traceable." I exhaled, my pulse still racing. "There's more. A letter yesterday smuggled from jail. She's got friends." Chris paused, the silence heavy. "Send me a pic of it. If she's coordinating from lockup, that's a new charge. Could extend her stay." I snapped a photo, my fingers fumbling, and sent it, the jagged handwriting glaring back at me from the screen. "Stay vigilant," Chris said before hanging up. "I'm on it." Ben sank onto the couch, his head in his hands, and I sat beside him, my own anger simmering. "We can't let her win," I said, my voice fierce. He looked up, his eyes meeting mine, and nodded, a quiet resolve settling between us. Tara showed up that afternoon, her blonde hair frizzy from the rain, her eyes wide with that gossipy spark I both loved and dreaded. "You guys are trending again," she said, flopping onto our armchair, her gym bag thudding to the floor. "Saw it at the coffee shop, people whispering about Dr. Dreamy's wife. Some idiot even asked if I knew you." My stomach twisted, a fresh wave of humiliation washing over me. "Great," I muttered, rubbing my temples. "Just what we need." Ben's jaw tightened, his hands clenching into fists. "I'm not their damn plaything," he snapped, his voice raw. Tara leaned forward, her smirk fading. "I told him to shove it, but Lila, there's a rally thing. Online chatter about freeing June. Small, maybe a dozen people, but they're loud." My heart skipped, a cold sweat prickling my skin. "A rally?" I asked, my voice small. She nodded, pulling out her phone. "Found it on a private group, screenshots." She showed us, a blurry flyer, Justice for June scrawled in red, a date set for next week outside the courthouse. My blood ran cold, my hands shaking as I handed it back. "This is insane," I whispered. Ben stood, pacing, his energy restless, electric. "We need to stop this," he said, his voice trembling with fury. I called Nia that night, too wired to wait for our coffee date, my voice spilling out in a rush as Ben listened beside me. "They're planning a rally, June's fans, some justice crap," I said, my words tripping over each other. "And a letter from jail. We're drowning again." Nia's laugh was sharp, cutting through my panic. "Damn, girl, you've got a soap opera. Okay, rally's noise, not power. Counter it. Go public again. Louder. Post that letter. Call out the jail angle. Make it their problem. As for Hargrove, my landlord, I've got him on a leash. Cameras caught his son sneaking around. Cops warned him off. You need that edge." I exhaled, her confidence steadying me. "Public again?" I asked, glancing at Ben. He nodded, his jaw set. "Worked before," he said, his voice low but firm. "Thanks, Nia," I said, a grin tugging at my lips. "Tomorrow coffee's on me." She snorted. "Damn right. Kick their asses." The next morning, we met Nia at a bustling cafe downtown, the clatter of cups and chatter a welcome distraction. She strode in, her dark hair pulled back, her eyes sharp and assessing. "You two look like hell," she said, sliding into the booth across from us, her tone teasing but warm. I laughed, a tired sound, and Ben managed a grin, his first real one in days. "Feel like it too," he said, sipping his coffee. I slid the letter across the table, my hands steadier now. "This came yesterday," I said. "June's still pulling strings." Nia scanned it, her lips pursing. "Smug bitch," she muttered, handing it back. "Post it. Tag the jail, the PD, everyone. Let 'em choke on it. My landlord tried texting me sweetie again. I forwarded it to my lawyer, CC'd his wife. Shut him up fast." I grinned, her fire infectious, and Ben chuckled, a low, rumbling sound that warmed me. "You're a badass," he said, and she winked. "Damn right. Now your turn." We drafted the post together, hunched over my phone, the cafe's Wi-Fi spotty but enough. "June's in jail, but her friends keep coming," I typed, my fingers flying. "Smuggled threats, rally plans. Here's the proof. We're done hiding." I attached the letter's photo, tagged the police, the jail, even the local news, and hit send, my heart pounding. Nia nodded, approving. "That's it. Make 'em squirm." The post took off fast. Jake retweeted Tara too, and soon it was everywhere, Comments piling up, some supportive, some vile, but the noise was ours now. Chris called an hour later, his voice gruff but pleased. Jail's investigating, letters real, smuggled through a guard. They're sweating, rally's shrinking too, cops are on it. I exhaled, a shaky laugh escaping me, and Ben squeezed my hand, his eyes bright with relief. But the rally still happened. Small, pathetic, a dozen damp weirdos outside the courthouse the next week, waving soggy signs under a gray sky. I watched it on the news from our living room, Ben beside me, his arm around my shoulders. "Justice for June," they chanted, their voices thin and reedy, drowned out by passing cars. A cop broke it up in 20 minutes, citing no permit, and I laughed, a real, full laugh that shook me loose. "They're done," I said, turning to Ben, my voice light. He smiled, a slow, genuine thing, and kissed me, his lips soft and sure. "We're done with them," he corrected, his voice steady. I nodded, leaning into him, the weight lifting, not gone but lighter, bearable. Naya texted later. "Saw the rally flop, nice work. Hargrove's son tried sneaking again, Cam caught him, cops hauled him off. We're winning." I grinned, texting back, "Coffee soon, our treat." Ben and I started packing that weekend, boxes stacking up in the living room, a new state in mind, somewhere quiet, somewhere ours. June's shadow lingered, her friends a faint echo, but we were moving forward, stronger, unbroken. "New start," I said, taping a box shut, my voice firm. Ben nodded, his hand on mine, his eyes clear. "New start," he echoed, and I believed it. The rain had stopped, leaving a damp chill in the air as Ben and I hauled the last of our boxes into the Jeep, the tailgate slamming shut with a satisfying thud. We'd spent the week packing, sorting through 2 years of suburban life. Photo albums, Ben's old dental school notes, my mismatched mugs, paring it down to what mattered. The house stood empty behind us, its windows blank, its walls no longer ours. I leaned against the car, my breath fogging in the crisp morning light, and watched Ben lock the front door one last time, his movements slow, deliberate, like he was sealing away more than just a building. "Ready?" he asked, turning to me, his hazel eyes clearer than they'd been in months, a faint smile tugging at his lips. I nodded, my chest tight with a mix of relief and anticipation. "Ready," I said, my voice steady despite the flutter in my stomach. We were leaving, new state, new start, a place June's shadow couldn't reach. Not yet, anyway. My phone buzzed as we climbed into the Jeep, the engine rumbling to life beneath us. It was Naya, her text a burst of her usual fire. "Hargrove's done. Cops nabbed Tommy breaking in last night, caught on my cam. Posted the vid online, tagged them both. They're screwed. You on the road?" I grinned, a fierce pride swelling in me, and texted back, "Hell yes, just left. You're a legend. Coffee when we settle?" Her reply was instant. "Damn right. Drive safe, badass." I read it aloud to Ben and he chuckled, a low, warm sound that felt like home. "She's unstoppable," he said, shifting into gear, the Jeep rolling down our old street, past familiar houses that no longer held us. I glanced at the dash cam, its red light blinking, a silent guardian we'd keep wherever we went. "So are we," I said, my voice firm, and he squeezed my hand, his grip a promise. Chris had called the night before, his voice gruff but steady, tying up the last threads of June's mess. "Jail's cracking down, letter traced to a guard she bribed. He's fired, she's in solitary, no contact. Her fans are quiet, rally flop killed their steam, and your post scared 'em off. Kevin's on probation, too spooked to try again." I'd exhaled then, a shaky laugh escaping me, the weight lifting just enough to breathe. "She's really done?" I'd asked, needing to hear it. "For now," he'd said, cautious but certain. "She's got no moves left, solitary's hell, and her crew's scattered." I'd thanked him, my throat tight, and hung up, turning to Ben with a grin. "She's suffering," I'd said, and he'd nodded, his eyes dark with a quiet satisfaction. "Good," he'd murmured, pulling me close, and we'd slept that night with the lights off, the first time in too long. But June's pain wasn't just bars and isolation. I'd seen the leaked jail logs online, snippets Jake had dug up and sent me with a gleeful "check this." She'd trashed her cell again, screaming about Dr. Dreamy until they sedated her, her voice echoing down cinderblock halls to no one who cared. Her followers, those pathetic stragglers, had dwindled to a handful of diehards, their posts drowned out by mockery, their martyr a laughingstock behind bars. I pictured her there, alone, Her phone confiscated, her ring lights a distant memory, her obsession a chain she'd forged herself. It wasn't enough. Nothing could erase what she'd done. But it was something. A bitter twist of justice that tasted sharp and cold on my tongue. Nia's victory was sweeter, a mirror to ours but louder, brasher. She'd sent me the video late last night, grainy footage of Tommy skulking outside her apartment, his hoodie pulled low, a crowbar glinting in his hand. The camera caught it all, his clumsy break-in, the flash of red and blue as cops swarmed, his whiny protests as they cuffed him. "Smile, you're on camera," she'd narrated in the clip, her voice dripping with triumph, and I'd laughed until my sides ached, texting her a string of clapping emojis. Hargrove's name was mud now, Nia's post had gone viral, local news picking it up, tenants piling on with their own stories. He'd lost the building, she'd told me in a follow-up text, forced to sell after the scandal, and she'd stayed, her lease renewed under new management, her door jammed shut with a sign that read, "Monitored 24/7. My castle, she'd called it, and I believed her, her strength a beacon I'd carry with me. As we drove, the miles stretching out ahead, I thought about what we'd learned. Ben and me, Nia too, each of us scarred but standing. Trust was a fragile thing, easily shattered by a lens or a lie, but it could be rebuilt, forged stronger in the fire of betrayal. June had taught me that, her sneaky videos, her twisted fixation showing me how blind I'd been, how quick to assume the best. But she'd also shown me what we were made of. Ben's quiet courage, my stubborn fight, Nia's relentless grit. We'd stared down her chaos and come out the other side, not whole, not untouched, but alive, together, unbowed. "What's on your mind?" Ben asked, glancing at me as the highway hummed beneath us, his voice pulling me back. I smiled, a small, real thing, and leaned my head against the window. "Us," I said. "How we're more than she could break." He nodded, his hand finding mine, and we drove on, the past shrinking in the rear view, the future wide and open. June's story wasn't ours to finish, not fully. She'd rot in solitary for now, her friends a fading whisper. But who knew what festered in her mind, what plans she'd hatch when the bars finally parted. I didn't care, not today, not yet. We'd won this round, and that was enough, a victory carved from sleepless nights and shaky hands. Nia's fight wasn't over either. Hargrove might slink back, Tommy might stew, but she'd meet them head on, her cameras rolling, her voice loud. And us? We'd settle somewhere new, a quiet town maybe, a place to breathe, but we'd keep the cams, the locks, the lessons etched deep. Peace wasn't a gift, it was a choice, one we'd guard with everything we had. So here's the thing, what about you? This mess started with a TikTok, a friend gone rogue, a landlord too close for comfort, but it's bigger than us. Who's lurking in your feed, your life, waiting to turn your trust into a weapon? Drop your story below, call it out, laugh it off, whatever feels right. We've learned the hard way. Silence lets them win, but noise? Noise is power. Ben and I are driving into the unknown, Nia's holding her ground, and June's choking on her own game. What's your move?